talk about the male coaches in the WNBA. So the Dallas Wings announced not so long ago that José Fernandez will be their new head coach. This will be their third head coach in as many seasons. They had Latricia Trammell was their head coach in 2024. They had Chris Koklanis this last season, and now they have José Fernandez. The question now is becoming, are there too many male coaches, excuse me, in the WNBA? It seems like, I believe after, isn't it just Becky Hammon and Sho Reeve are the only, and like there's like only a handful of female head coaches. Becky Hammon, Sho Reeve, Natalie Nakate.
There's 7 right now.
So they kind of split up, but it seems like the last couple of female head coaches that have been fired, they've all turned to men, right? Tanisha Wright was fired by the Atlanta Dream. They turned to Karl Smesko. Teresa Weatherspoon was fired by the Chicago Sky. They turned to Tyler March. And so this has become an ongoing conversation. But Martin, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think there are too many male head coaches in the WNBA?
No, I don't. I wanted to use this time to talk about this as a male hosted women's basketball podcast. And there's a lot of discourse around this, to the extent that, like I told you, I've seen people posing that not only that there should be more female head coaches, but that every head coach in the WNBA should be female. I wouldn't. I'm only going to advocate for qualification here. And that's not to say that every single hire was highly qualified and the right move and the right hire. And I'm going to sound like I'm coming off defending the male presence in the coaching ranks of the WNBA. I'm all for more female. I'm for any coaching hire that is qualified, that connects with players, that knows the game. That's just qualified. So I guess I'm just pushing back on this notion that seems to be spreading, that just because there's been a good amount of male hires to replace females, that there's this like negative epidemic happening in the WNBA with too many male head coaches. And I feel like part of what discredits that is the fact that we have successes. We look at what Nate Tibbetts in Phoenix is good to go. And mind you, when he was hired, outrage. Do you remember? Like outrage. I mean, this guy has no women's basketball experience, has only been in the NBA, right? And look at him. A couple years in, he's been to the finals.
He's in the finals, yeah.
Players love him. He's good there. Like, he seems secure and good there. Has a group that seems to really be bought into him, and vice versa. Look at what Karl Smesko just did year 1 in Atlanta. He's going to be there for the foreseeable future because of the job he did. I think Tyler Marsh is going to be a mainstay in Chicago. I liked what I saw, even though the team is trash. I watched enough to see how Angel was playing. Only Becky Hammon couldn't win with that roster. That roster was totally flawed. It wasn't about the coach. But so when it's that bad, you have to watch to see for yourself, to see, okay, do I see anything? Do I see any imprint of what this coach is doing versus the previous coach? I did. Tyler Marsh versus Teaspoon. I did see differences in how Angel was playing and how the team was playing. I saw things that had me encouraged, like, okay, Tyler Marsh, you should be good. You seem to be doing a fine job. You're going to be good going forward, unless there's something I'm missing there. So again, I'm not saying every male hire is a success and is qualified. We have had plenty of disasters of male head coaches in the WNBA. Derek Fisher, Bill Laimbeer was okay for a second, but kind of turned into a disaster.
Turned to a disaster at the end. Oh my God. Yeah.
So but I'm just not supporting this notion that there's too many male hires in the WNBA. This guy, José Fernandez, again, comes with what we say we want. He experienced in the women's college game. Karl Smesko had, similar experience coming from Florida Gulf Coast, did a great job with Atlanta. Apparently this guy, I think his name's José Fernandez, right?
José Fernandez. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I knew Fernandez was the last name. I'm making sure I have the first name right. Apparently he was their first choice. I don't know if you saw, he was supposed to be the initial hire, not Chris Koklanis. Wow. Like, apparently that was the thing. And when they wanted to hire him, it got too close to the college season, because when they fired Latricia Trammell, it was too close to the college season. So that was the hang up with getting this guy. But apparently this guy was supposed to be the hire from the jump. So
it almost kind of feels like unless Chris just like did something miraculous, he was going to get fired this season anyway because they really
Yeah, and that was obviously a miss in terms of like just just relating to players. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't cover that team. I'm not around them. I've never met him. I don't know. But from afar, even from afar, looking at videos and clips from games, you could tell there was a disconnect. I don't know what his basketball acumen is, or clearly he knows the game at a certain level. There's probably things that he has strengths in. One of them didn't seem to be connecting with players. It just wasn't happening. You saw body language, facial expressions during timeouts, players looking lost, confused. Like all the signs were there that players were just not, there was a disconnect there. So obviously that was a miss. But I don't think these male coaching hires that are replacing females or that end up being unsuccessful are automatic signals that we're just doing too much with incorporating men into the WNBA coaching ranks. And the last quick thing I'll say as part of my first point, I also feel like I don't want to get away from like encouraging male involvement in the WNBA. Like I get the sentiment of wanting to see a female leading a female led team. But I also, I guess, just as part of my, I guess, male bias or my male whatever support or whatever, like we want men involved in women's basketball, whether that's as a coach or a fan or a manager or whatever. And I'm not saying we need to overrun it or be the majority, but I like the fact that I can see a male on the sideline coaching women. You know, like I like seeing men and women work together in basketball. So I'm for male head coaches, and I think at the WNBA level, it's part of what's helping to accelerate the game in terms of our like inclusion, right? I mean, you could call it like a DEI hire if you want. I don't care. Like it's, you know, like let's and I'm not advocating for let's keep men in the WNBA. Let's keep men coaching in the W. I just think it helps show more of what we want to see, which is men involved in the women's game at a high level, coaching it, refereeing it, being fans of it, whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because after we talked about it and we put in the show together on Sunday, like I was so prepared to come on here and be like, I do think there's too many. But then I thought about it and I thought about like the context in which we're seeing these men hired, right? So if you look at the 3 instances this season where a team went from a female coach to a male coach, we'll start with the Dream, right? You go from Tanisha Wright to Karl Smesko. Karl Smesko is a Coach of the Year candidate. Alicia Gray has the best season of her career. The Dream finished above 500 for the first time in I don't know how long. They made it out of the first round for the first time since like 2013 or something like that. Like they had a they were one of the best teams in the league this season under Karl Smesko. You look at that and you say, huh, makes sense. To your point about Tyler Marsh, same thing. There's a lot of outrage over the Teresa Weatherspoon hire because only one season. Now you're turning to Tyler Marsh, and you don't see the wins pile up the way they did for Atlanta and Karl Smesko. But to your point, even though the team was really, really bad, Angel Reese played better this season. She looked a little bit better. There were some improvements that were made. Camila Cardoso even looked better this season. And you look at that and you go, well, maybe there's some signs of improvement there. Also, not to mention the fact Tyler Marsh did win 2 championships with the Las Vegas Aces as a part of an assistant coach on their staff. It was a big part of that as well. Then you go to Chris Koklinas going to that from Latricia Trammell. They won one more game this year than they did last year. But in the context, this was still a team that only returned 2 starters, right? Players they went out and got, players like Ty Harris, she got hurt. Paige Beckers missed sometimes. They went out and got Alyssa Smith and got Dejanay Carrington, then sent them to Las Vegas and Minnesota respectively. So it's like the team that he walked into wasn't the team that he ended the season with. The fact I saw something where like they had 18 different starting lineups this season, which was the most in the WNBA. So like there was a lot of turnover where you look at that and you say, does Latricia Trammell do better if everything stays the same except for the coach? Does the season still happen the way it does? Probably so, yes. So I can't look at that and say this is a sign as to, darn, maybe they should have kept Latricia Trammell. I think what I think has been most promising is every instance, for the most part, of recent, Karl Smesko, Nate Tibbetts, and Tyler Marsh. Every instance where a team has gone from a female coach to a
How
male
about your
coach
team? How about
recently.
Sydney Johnson? Come
Sidney
on.
Johnson. Well, that was Mike Tibbetts to Sidney Johnson. But even so, Sidney Johnson's
Okay,
still
you're still
a
on
male
the
hire, but he's still, for what it's worth, up until they traded Brittany Sykes, the Mystics were teetering on playoff positioning this season. So it's like every instance where a new male head coach was hired over the past couple of years, they've
right.
actually done pretty okay in their
Yeah.
first season. So it hasn't been like this thing where you look at, I'm a big football guy. You look at, like, and I said this on the phone, in football, for example, you get like just what seems to be the lowest qualified white guy to be the head coach, and he goes out and lays an egg in the first season, but he gets time after time after time. But maybe a more qualified black guy doesn't get the job, or when he does get the job, he's out of there in the first thing smoking. It's not that, and I think
Right. That's what I
and
feel
I
like
think
people are trying to make it.
exactly, and I think that's the big difference. Is this is not like what we're seeing in the NFL, where people are getting hired who are probably not the most qualified candidate, and they're failing and still getting chances. What I like that's most promising, because I did some digging on José Fernandez. He's been at USF for over a decade, and they've been
Long
in the
time.
tournament the last 10 years. Like, he's been
That's
very,
right.
very successful at USF. That's very similar to what we saw from Karl Smesko coming out of Florida Gulf Coast.
Sure.
Same thing.
Yep.
Very successful in college ranks. Now, he is inheriting a tough situation,
Yeah.
right? But you would like to think, especially if this is a guy if you're saying they wanted to hire him anyway instead of hiring Chris, this is the go-to guy. You have to think, number one, he's going to have a longer leash, but you have to also to expect that what they had this season is going to happen next season. Like, you can't possibly imagine going to have 18 different starting line. Enrique didn't play much basketball all this season as well. That's another component of it. So it's like, when you look at the context of it, I don't think it's that it's too many. I think, what I think it is? I think we as fans, no matter what the sport is, because it happens like all the time, I think we as fans have an idea of what we want to see. And when what we want to see doesn't happen, we automatically assume it's a bad thing. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people want to see a Lisa Leslie as a head coach, or see
Right.
a Cheryl Swoops as a head coach, or maybe even and as you said the other day, we were talking, like, do these people even want to be head coach? Like, are we even sure that these former players want to be head coaches? And so when you look at it from that perspective, I like, we as fans, I feel like sometimes kind of make ourselves upset.
Yeah.
Like, we see someone gets fired, boom, put Lisa.
Yeah.
I did it with Seattle. Put Lisa Leslie in Seattle because I think that would be a really good fit. But, like,
Sure.
Lisa Leslie might be fine just coaching in the Big Three and doing what she does. I was like, doing what she does, showing up courtside to games and just being more so of a legend who is now an ambassador of the game. Same thing for Cheryl Swoops. So I think that is another part of it that's contributing to this narrative that there are too many male coaches. But I'm with you. As long as, I don't care who it is, as long as it is a qualified person who's coming in here and being successful, I don't care who the coach is of any team, as long as it's lending to the betterment of the game and good basketball being displayed. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And representation, I'm all for representation. So I understand the sentiment of wanting to see more female head coaches,
Sure.
especially because, and I think the Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops crowd, I think you make a good point. That's more about fans drawing up what they think would be a cool story, as opposed to like vetting who they think are the most qualified female candidates to be head coaches, because there are plenty of qualified females in the WNBA on coaching staffs, not coaching. There are plenty of qualified females to be head coaches. Like, that is just a fact. Christy Tolliver. Look,
Her name has been coming up a lot.
Indiana. Who's the assistant with Indiana? Breon January.
Breon
There are females on these staffs that clearly and might end up becoming head coaches. So, I mean, I'm all for vouching for those females who are absolutely qualified. I know the Teaspoon firing left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think mainly because, like, she's a legend, like she's a WNBA legend, and because of her relationship with Angel, and we had talked about that. But yeah, so I just think it should be more about the vouching for the qualified people who really should be talked about more, females, that is, as potential head coaches. I also think, like, we can't lose sight of the fact that there are 7 female head coaches right now in the league. There were 4 in 20. There were only 4 in 2020, and that's when we had the Derek Fishers, the Bill Lambiers, like a ton of male head coaches. There were only 4. Now there's 7. Let's not forget, Seattle fired a female head coach, hired a female head coach. Toronto expansion team just hired a female head coach. Golden State was a franchise, was a new expansion team, hired a female head coach. Like, They're out here. Stephanie White is the head coach of the Indiana Fever. I mean,
the Sparks hired Lynn Roberts as we were doing a pod last offseason,
the
and
Sparks
she
hired Lynn Roberts. There are 7 female head coaches, and I think there will continue to be a balance. Overall, I think it's a good thing that we have male head coaching presence in the WNBA, mainly because I think it further promotes even just the optics of seeing males in the women's basketball space. We see it plenty in women's college basketball. Gino, Wes Moore. I mean, we have some staples of male head coaches in women's college basketball. But in the WNBA, I think now we're seeing a little bit more of a balance, and we'll see some more males kind of make a name for themselves. And I think that's a good thing, especially if it's leading to, production and success for those franchises.
For sure. Ghost, your last wants to know if you're trying to put those queens on it.
You're on a roll tonight. You're on a roll tonight. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.